In this video, I'm going to discuss how you can add custom micrometer meter filters in a Spring Boot application and configure them so that they work together with the default filters that Spring Boot configured for you. So the micrometer library helps you to collect metrics and other observations from your applications so that you can monitor them. This library is integrated with other libraries, including Spring Boot. So if you create a Spring Boot application out of the box, you have a whole bunch of metrics available already. So for the purpose of this video and this article, I've created a sample code. It's available in GitHub. So let's go to the GitHub repository and let's get the clone URL and open it in an IDE. So this is a simple Spring Boot application. So what I have enabled here is the starter web, actuator, registry Prometheus, and Lombok. And it's a Maven project. And for this video, we will set a breakpoint inside Spring Boot. So you want to download the sources and documentation so that it's available in your IDE. So here you could see that I've enabled the Prometheus and metric endpoint. And then the rest of the configuration here is related to the properties meter filter. So these are the prefix of meters that we enable. So anything that starts with jvm.gc and anything that starts with process, and everything else is disabled. So let's try running this and see what happens. So the endpoint will be localhost because I'm running on my laptop, and the port is 8080, the default port, and the endpoint to get the Prometheus metric is just actuator Prometheus. So let's load this, and you could see that these are the metrics that get published by the application. Just everything that starts with jvm.gc and everything that starts with process. You may notice that the dot get changed into underscore here. So let's change this to something else. So let's say enable all. And let's restart. And let's see what we have. So we reload here, you'll have a whole bunch of metric. Oh, and let's also try querying the metric endpoint. And you could see that's all the metrics available without the value. To query each one of the values using the metric endpoint, you have to paste the name of the metric after the actuator endpoint. And here you could see that that's the application ready time, and that's the value. So it's much more convenient to just use the Prometheus endpoint because you have the metric values and the description all in one go. So let's go to the application class and add the meter filter as a bean. Alternatively, you can also add the meter filter as a component. Once you do that, Spring Boot, when it's configuring the actuator, the metric actuator, it will see that you have a meter filter bean and it will register the filter for you. So we want a bean here, and it's a meter filter bean, and we want to accept A through E. And we are going to use the A to Z filter. And we're using the builder, and we're accepting a set of ranges that will be A to E. and we are denying everything else. So here I've added the code to accept all meters that start with the letter A, B, C, D, and E, and deny everything else. And in the application properties, we still have um, the JVM GC metric enabled and everything else denied. So let's see what happens when we run this application. Let's query our endpoint, reload. There's nothing. Now, how did we get into this situation? So what happened here? So let's go back to our IntelliJ and let's stop this. And let's examine what we have. So we have this meter filter that accepts anything that starts with A through E and reject everything else that's anything that starts with F through Z, and neutral for anything else that's not starting with a lowercase letter. You could see it in this source code here. And we also have the properties meter filter that's configured to reject everything except for JVM GC. And if you dig into the documentation of properties meter filter, this is not a direct accept, this is actually a neutral. So this is neutral, this is deny. And let's figure out how the meter filters are stacked up. For that, we need to set a breakpoint inside Spring Boot. So there is an auto configuration process related to the metrics endpoint. So let's look at that. So here, if we see here, there's metrics auto configuration, and there's a post processor, and this is where the filters are set up. And if you scroll down a little bit, you could see there's apply filter here. This is what we want. So let's set a breakpoint inside apply filters right before it returns so that we can examine exactly what filters are being applied. And let's rerun the application. Okay, so we hit our breakpoint, and here are the filters. And there's a list of filters. So we want to examine it. And let's make it into a list so that we can examine it a little bit more conveniently. And you could see here, this is the properties meter filter, the one that we set in the application properties. And then this is where our filter is. So our filter is set up at the end of the list. And these other two filters, they're the HTTP client and request and server request. And in our particular case today, these two filters are not applicable. These are just filters to limit the dimensionality of the metrics related to HTTP client and server request. In our case, only these two filters matter. And let's look at what the situation is. I have a drawing here. So here we have the properties meter filter and other Spring filters. And then here at the end, we have our custom filter, accept AE, deny F through Z. And the properties meter filter is configured to be neutral for everything that starts with JVM GC. And then it will get passed on to the next filter. And in this case, it's going to be our custom filter. And since we are only accepting A through E, then we will deny this. And since we're denying everything else, then nothing shows up. So if you want this JVM GC to show up, we can modify our filter to accept J. And in that case, JVM GC will show up. Let's try that. Well, change this so that we are not rejecting J. So let's modify this range to the letter after J, and let's accept A through J. And run this. And let's see if our metric shows up. Reload this, and it shows up. So this is the behavior that we should expect now, because we are now allowing A through J and denying everything after that. But how are we going to change this so that we have our filter in front of the properties meter filter instead of after? So to do that, we just need to specify that our bean is a highest priority bean. So let's go back to IntelliJ. Stop this. Let's return this to back to A through E, and F through Z is rejected, and then we are still keeping this the same. So if we put this as the highest priority bean, so we just put the order notation and order highest precedence. This will make our filter to be placed first before other spring filters. So let's run this and see what we have. So here, what we have, just everything from A through E, and everything else is rejected. Now, you see, because our filter comes in first, and we're rejecting J from the get-go, the fact that we are accepting JVM-GC in the properties meter filter is irrelevant for the decision. So if we visualize this, we will see something like this one. So here's a visualization of what happened. So our custom filter is up front now, and we accept A through E. We reject F to C, and nothing else goes through the properties meter filter, which now is located after our custom filter. We can verify that in the debugger. So let's run it in the debugger. And if we examine the filters here, you will see that our filter is first. So that's one way to add a meter filter. If you want to have more than one filters and you need to order them, you can use this ordered. So this is the highest precedence, and then you can have the second highest precedence, and then you can have the next one, third highest precedence, and all that. But this is a little bit cumbersome to keep track. If you have more than one meter filter, it might be easier to just use the meter registry customizer to install all of your filters. So that is done like this. So instead of returning a bean that return a meter filter, you want to return a meter registry customizer. And this is a bean that will configure meter registry. So we can just say return. And so we have a registry here. And we can get the config object of this registry. And add meter filter here. So we created 3 filters here. And let's see what happens. Let's run this under the debugger so that we know how the meter filter are getting added. Okay, let's see the list of filters in here. And you can see there are only 3 filters, and these are the Spring Boot default filters that we saw earlier. So the question is, where are our filters that get added through the customizers? If you scroll up here in the source code, you could see that this is where the filters getting applied. So since we are in the apply filters, which happen after the customizers are applied, if you look at the meter registry, then we should see those filters already in there, right? So let's have a look. Meter registry, it should be under the config object, and let's find the filters, and there we go. These are the 3 filters that we added: accept AE, deny WZ, accept J. So if we step through this and then we look at the meter registry again, then we should see all those filters set up. Either under config or just look at the filters of the meter registry. You can see that these are our 3 filters followed by Spring Boot filters. And the same list should be available here as well. You look at this, our 3 custom filter and the Spring Boot filters. Okay, so with that, we should have pretty good idea on what will happen. So let's run this. So we are allowing everything A to E, and anything starts with J, and we're rejecting everything else. So let's run this and query this. And you can see A through E, everything that starts with J, not just JVM-GC, because remember that we have a custom meter filter in here that let through everything that starts with J. So anything JVM, anything that starts with J will be accepted. So in this video, I cover how you can add custom meter filters to a Spring Boot application, and I discuss how you can order this meter filter so that you can get the behavior that you want. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it's useful for you.